Hello! Now, this is a first video of a two-part series about our new roastery. And in the first video, I wanted to have a little walk and talk together with Ben, which is behind me, to show you a little bit around the roastery and the storage, so you can see, our facilities. And then in the second video, we'll sit down and have a little chat to talk about how it is to actually roast on a new roaster and what our thoughts around it. So I hope you will enjoy it. It's a little bit geeky, but I'm pretty sure you will enjoy it if you're into roasting. So this is Ben.
Hello.
Ben is our potato. And roaster, and also he's from Australia, which is very good.
Thank you.
So let's have a look at the new roaster. This is called a Loring Kestrel 35, which means it's a 35 kilo roaster. And in the old days, people said, well, you can't really roast 35 kilos on it. Yeah, because it wasn't powerful enough. So the earlier version, like the first roasters that came to Norway of the Loring, was over 10 years ago. And I know that they are normally roasting no more than 25 kilos. It's at Solberg & Hansen.
Yeah.
Have you tried roasting 35 on this?
We haven't done 35, but we've done 30.
Yeah.
And we've done 30 very easily, so I think we have the power to do 35 if we wanted to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like we're currently, our roast times are around 9 minutes on 30 kilos.
Yeah, 9 to 10 minutes, so we need to slow them down a little bit maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe a little too fast.
Yeah.
Can you please show us a little bit how this screen works and what's the difference between this and the ProBat?
Yeah, well, the main difference is like we actually have a screen on this machine.
Yeah.
The ProBat was very manual and hands-on, whereas this is a touch screen, and we're using this screen here to start the roaster, adjust the flame, get the energy on.
Yeah.
So pretty much all the operations is going through this little box.
Now it can also log the roasting curves, but we're actually not using that at the moment.
No, I mean we look at it a little bit and we have all the data here, all the temperatures and the probe temperatures here.
Yeah.
But we're using Cropster still to follow our profiles on the Mac here.
Yeah, so that's why we have a Mac attached to the roaster as well, which means we're actually logging the temperature of the beans. So there's a little thermometer probe here that measures the bean temperature. We have the exiting air temperature. We have also the incoming air temperature. And we also have probes in the stack. In case we have a fire, we can see that the temperature goes very high. And then we can actually quench the fire. Well, I mean, we shouldn't have a fire, but in case we have a fire, we can quench it here with some water just by touching the screen.
Yeah, so everything happens on this screen. Occasionally we get some little faults and warnings, and that means telling us like things are going a little bit off, or low pressure or things like that. So yeah, like you say, like I just push the buttons and the roaster sort of goes to work.
Do you feel like you have more control with this compared to the ProBat, or?
Yes, I do. Like mainly just because I think it's more responsive in its terms of like energy application and things like that. So the screen itself is quite responsive, but when I push a button, something's starting to happen straight away. Yeah. Whereas in the ProBat, it was more like a slower sort of ship turning around. Yeah. Whereas this one is
speed load.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you not familiar with this system, we can show you on the other side. But the old ProBat that we used to have was a very old roaster. I mean, the design is from the early 1900s. And that was designed with basically flames underneath a drum, a rotating drum. And there was a little bit of air being drawn through the drum. The air from the room was getting sucked into the drum and then pushed out again. So a lot of the heat that we were applying actually just went out the chimney. And the drum would be at different temperatures depending on how cold the room temperature was. So if it was very cold in the room, which it is in the winter in Norway, we would have to use a lot more flame to heat up the drum and also to heat up the air to get to the same temperatures.
And less airflow perhaps too, and then rely on how much heat is retained in the cast iron drum itself. Whereas this is quite different.
Yeah, this is a different system where actually in the cyclone, and we'll show you that later, the flame is actually in the cyclone, so we're transporting the just hot air into the drum from the back here, and then it goes out again. which means we can more precisely control the temperature.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're able to hit the curves a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. Like I can, if for some reason I'm slightly above or below, it's so easy for me then just to adjust up or down and follow the line again.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I say, it's sort of like a speedboat. Like because it's just hot air coming in, I can adjust up and down much quicker.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So now the debate in the coffee community will probably be, should you follow the temperature on the bean probe, the exit temperature or the input temperature?
Yeah.
I think it's a mix, because it's not a 100% stable thing, because it's a lot of air moving around. So we'll see.
We'll see.
Let's have a little look at the. Let's close the door. The cooling tray, because this is a much smaller than our previous cooling tray that was, like this, but it's much more efficient.
True. Yeah.
How fast can you cool the coffee on this?
Well, the 30 kilo batches is probably 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of cooled down. So it's much more efficient than the old big wide one.
Yeah.
As you see, like this is smaller, but it's much deeper.
Yeah. And the fan is much stronger.
There's a lot more suction, so yeah.
So you can barely open the doors actually when this fan is on, because it creates a vacuum in the room. It sucks air from the room and out the chimney through the coffee. And of course you can probably adjust the profiles a little bit, because it's much more efficient, which means, in my head at least, we're able to roast a little bit lighter because it's cooling much faster. So you can kind of terminate the roast a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Also, we probably should mention that it doesn't look that much bigger, but we can roast 30 to 35 kilos on this one, whereas the previous roaster we had, we could roast maximum 15 kilos, but we were in general just roasting 12 kilos at the time. So I mean, for us it's a huge difference, and much easier to do quality control as well.
Yeah, so much more efficient, like being able to double your batch size in the same amount of time, and just half the workload in some regards.
Double the cost when you have misroasts.
Which happens.
Yeah. We take it off his salary, so don't worry about it.
That's true.
Also, an interesting detail on this one is that this is the bean dryer, so you can stick it into the drum and get some beans to look at them if you want to.
Yeah, I very rarely use that, to be honest.
Yeah. But there's a lid here that blocks the air from coming in once you take it out, whereas on the ProBat, you could see on the temperature curves when you took it out, you had a little dip, because a lot of cold air would come in here, but this one is completely airtight. Should we have a look at the other side? What the?
Well, yeah, this makes my life a lot easier. This is where we load the green beans, and then they get sucked up through this tube into the hopper. Okay, so it has a scale built in. And instead of having to climb up a ladder and lift a heavy bucket, 15 kilos or something, I can just load up and then push a button and coffee is loaded. So
It also has a magnet. You can see there's a little bit of metal dust here, but it's a really strong magnet. So small rocks and metal objects will stick to this, so it doesn't enter the roaster. Which we didn't have before.
And one thing I noticed, which surprised me a little bit, was we get every day we find a little bit of small gravel on that magnet there. And I never expected that to be in the coffee before, but I mean, it was there.
I mean, all our coffees are dried on raised beds, so there shouldn't be any stones or anything in the coffee, because it's not laying on a cement patio, which is quite normal in the coffee industry. But because the coffee is milled at the same mill as many other types of coffees, of course there will be some residual metal objects and stones and stuff. In the mill, they're not able to clean the machines 100%.
Often it's just like a very fine dust, but something you wouldn't pick up with a destone or anything, but the magnet sort of grabs it. So that's going to help it be a little cleaner, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully it'll save more grinders from breaking, because you don't want a nail or a screw or something inside your grinder.
Touch wood.
So let's have a little look at the cyclone now. Let's get this out of the way. So, can you explain how this works?
So this is the cyclone connected to the chaff bucket. We have behind here is the flame, And this is where the hot air is heated before being circulated and sent into the drum. So yeah, and then the return air comes back through the cyclone and then out again.
Yeah,
so.
But it's actually a recycling system, which means even though we're roasting a lot more coffee on this one, we're using no more gas at all.
Less, I'd say.
We're actually using a little bit less. And that's because the flame is inside the cyclone. So it transports the hot air into the drum and then it goes back. The air gets cleaned because the flame inside there, or the temperature is close to 1,000 degrees. So all the chaff, of course, will fall down in the chaff bucket. And then the air, due to pyrolysis and high temperatures, it gets cleaned and then it enters the roaster again. So it's actually not a lot of air coming out of the chimney. And that's why we actually don't have a chimney. We only have a pipe going through a ventilator outside on the back. And there's no smoke coming out because all the smoke and particles are burnt.
Yeah.
So you can just see that there's some steam coming out of the pipes on the back, which means the air in the city is much cleaner. On our old roaster, you could see at least when you entered the first crack, a lot of like blue smoke coming up the chimney, and we had to clean the chimney all the time and everything. Here we don't really have to clean the chimney because there's nothing to clean. So that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also some safety things on the roaster. It's connected to water, so in case we would have a fire, which we never had before, we could spray water into the drum, we can spray water into the chaff bucket, and we can also spray water into the cyclone. So it's a much safer roaster for everyone to use, I think.
That's a good thing, especially with the temperatures being so hot inside this little chimney here.
So that's our new roaster. Let's go around the little roastery. It's not too big, so we can have a little view of how it looks like. And we'll show you the storage as well. But first off, we'll show you after roasting. After roasting, we obviously weigh the coffees. Yeah. And then if you're strong enough, you can pour the coffee into this machine here, which is a weigh fill machine, which basically weighs a dose of coffee. And then a person is sitting here with a bag, bagging coffees automatically. Yeah. And this, is much more efficient than scooping out, and it saves your wrists. We used to do the scooping for many years, but we've had this machine for maybe 5 years. So this is very cool. And then from here, we seal it in these machines. So first we put the bags here, and then there's some nitrogen being flushed into the bags. And then there's a vacuum, and then the bags are sealed, and then they're ready to be packed and sent to you. So that's the whole production line.
Yeah. It's easy.
Let's go into the cooling storage. So this is our new storage, and can you explain the difference?
So much more space. I mean, we used to work in a little cellar.
Yeah.
I'd spend half my life down there, bending over, banging my head, moving green coffee around and up and down stairs and things like that.
Permanent dents in the head.
Yeah. So this is a lot more luxurious. Yeah. And we just have some room to store our green coffee, and we always prep batches for the next day, the night before, so I get everything ready in these buckets.
Yeah.
And,
But basically this is a cold storage, so we have a refrigerated or refrigerating fan. So the idea is to keep the green coffee at around 8 degrees. We could keep it lower as well, but that's the capacity of our fridge. We didn't have money to build a freezer, which we wanted to, but a refrigerated storage is very good for the quality, for the shelf life. So it's not the biggest storage room. I mean, we can maybe store 36 pallets, but we also need to have cardboard boxes and AeroPresses and bags and stuff like that. But the idea is to keep the coffees that we're going to have for a long time, and also the more expensive coffees we can keep here. You can see they're in boxes, most of them, which means the coffee is actually vacuum packed inside here. Let me show you how it looks like. Most of our coffees come in bags like this that are vacuum packed. This is obviously opened. So when we store it in a cold space, the shelf life of the green coffee is a little bit longer, we find. We used to have it in the cellar, which was quite cool.
Yeah.
So that's why we want to keep that kind of storage conditions. But the biggest thing now is we can drive in with a pallet instead of carrying one in one bag down the cellar and then the next day up again to roast it.
Oh yeah.
So that's a huge difference for us.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So this is it. No, obviously this is not all our coffee. We have some coffee stored in another remote storage space. But that's more for the coffees that we are using a lot of. That doesn't need to stay in Norway for a long time. And then they'll just deliver pallets of that every week or every second week.
Yeah. So
yeah, a bit more space, but much better for us. And that's it. That's all the roastery. And upstairs we're having offices and a lab, but that's not finished yet. So I'll show you that on a different video later on this year, because we're building a training room.
Yeah.
And also a lab where we can do cuppings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So welcome to this new vlog episode where we are going to talk about our new roaster, which you can see behind us, the Loring Kestrel 35 kilo.